Hello and welcome to the module on overcoming objections for Ignite candidates. This module will take you through the 10 most common objections on why people sometimes don't get into the business. Now, the overcoming objections, I believe, should be handled by your sponsor or certainly your upline. And the reason why is because they have been through many of these objections themselves, and they understand how to answer those questions. Now, as I mentioned in the last module, after the presentation has been viewed, that's usually when most of the objections come up. Let's talk about what those objections are. The 10 most frequent are, I don't have time. Is this a pyramid? Why is there a cost to get into the business? How do I know it will work? How do I know that the company has a good reputation? I don't know how to sell. I don't want to sponsor people. I've already heard about Ignite. I can't get customers in my market. And finally, I need to do more research. Probably the most common of all the objections. But we're going to take you through the best ways to handle these objections. And again, I would encourage you to listen to your sponsor or upline to get a better idea on how they would handle these. Let's talk about the first one, I don't have time. Very common objection. Well, let me begin by saying that most people that get into Ignite don't have time. The good people are busy people anyway, and they're going to have to work this into a very busy schedule. Well, you're going to find that on each one of these objections, we ask a question. The question here would be, how much time do you think it will take? Because I think that most associates or candidates would be surprised to learn that most of the time will be taken by the sponsor. They'll do most of the work. Well, maybe they think that it would take 40 hours. So you want to find out what types of activities are they engaged in that will eventually allow for more free time, and are they doing any activities that will allow them to gain freedom in the next few years. If they aren't, we're going to suggest that this is one of those activities. Now, keep in mind that people that are working for themselves or are currently in corporate America are in what we call the 40-40-40 program. What we're trying to do with Ignite is to consolidate and condense a 40-year career down to 4 years. Well, let's take a look at the typical employee. He works 40 years, 40 hours a week, and hopefully he gets a pension or a 401k. Well, give me 4 years, and you should have all the time you need and eventually be financially free. Keep in mind that you're not totally depending on just your talents and your activities to make income in this business. Because what's going to happen is that your business partners, again, are going to do most of the heavy lifting. Let me give you an example of that. Today we're going through a training module on overcoming objections. Your new candidate doesn't have to do that. It's all been done for them. So that's time that they could be spending either on other activities or perhaps recruiting on their Ignite time. In addition, the presentations are shown by someone else or presented by someone else. The major investment of time for a new associate would be training and recruiting, and that recruiting simply means names. Teeing those people up for your upline. So it could be that 25% of the time could return 75 or 100% of the time through other people. So you could double, triple, or even quadruple the amount of time that you are investing in the business through the assistance of your upline. You see, this business isn't like anything else that you've ever done. This is not a traditional business model. It is a contemporary business model where your income is dependent upon others. Your time is dependent upon others. Your training is dependent upon others. Quite frankly, very little of this business is dependent upon you at all. It's basically dependent upon others and what they're going to do and the leaders that you're going to find in this business. Now, it is possible that your candidate, and this is an exception to the rule, could do nothing but be an introducer. It could be that if they don't have time, let's say a doctor or a CPA, maybe these folks don't have any time at all to devote to the business, but what they could do is simply be an introducer by introducing you to their candidates. You would do the training, you would do all the work, but again, this is an exception. But the reason that this is important is because eventually you might find someone as an introducer within their organization that could take your business to major heights. They could recruit many, many people into your organization. Now, obviously, any business or any activity that's started must require some sacrifice. I'm not saying that you're going to have to spend a lot of time with Ignite, but you will definitely have to sacrifice something. So you need to ask your candidate if they're serious about gaining more time. What activity or activities are they currently engaged in that can be moved to the back burner where this activity can take its place? You will have to move something off the burner in order to make the business work. But it doesn't have to be a major sacrifice. It can be a minor sacrifice. So a list of those activities or a daily schedule needs to be looked at, and then decide among those activities which one or ones can actually be put to the back burner. Number two, is this a pyramid? When we say a pyramid, again, ask the question, could you please tell me in your own words what you think a pyramid is? So you really have to let that person define what they think a pyramid might be. You might be surprised at their answer. So getting the definition of the objection is very important. It's not necessarily important to tell them what you think. It's more important to find out what they think. For instance, if we take a look at a pyramid, they might say something like this. Well, a pyramid to me is, quite frankly, where all the money is made at the top. That could be what they think a pyramid is. Well, if you give them a chance to explain what they think, then answer that objection. Here's the answer to that specific objection. Well, if you take a look at our company, the majority of our income is made at the senior director level, not at the top. If you take a look at the total amount of money that's in the Ignite fund every single month, there's more money that is made and paid out at the senior director level. Most of the money is made at that level. Now, we have some executive directors that are making more money than senior directors, but there are more senior directors as a whole that are making more money than any of the other groups. It's very important that people understand that this is a business that, because we're deregulated on a state-by-state basis, we have millionaires that are yet to be created because we're not in their state yet. If we go to a new state and that person that comes into that new state is successful, they can bypass those that came into the business very early in Texas or Georgia. Very possible. Once you've gotten the explanation from the candidate, then you can go through a couple of other points and explain to them why this cannot be a pyramid, or for that matter, anything that resembles a pyramid. It's certainly not illegal. And illegal pyramids cannot happen in the energy business because of its highly deregulated nature. Here's what happens when a particular company, any energy company, applies as a service, as a marketer in a particular state. The first thing that happens is the Attorney General meets with that company. The staff does its due diligence and makes sure that the specific company is highly creditable. Records are checked, their past performance is checked, their compensation is checked, and the amount of income that they have made is checked. Many, many things. The second door that has to go through is the Public Service Commission door. They also do their due diligence. And this is important because the PSC has to interview everyone just as the Attorney General does. And this is on a state-by-state basis. Once the application is completed, it could take up to 11 months to get approved. And we're glad of this because the due diligence is very important to keep other companies or fraudulent companies from coming in. So it's virtually impossible for any type of pyramid or illegal pyramid scheme to take place here. In addition, no one gets paid in our business. If people think of this as a Ponzi scheme or anything like that, it's important to realize that no one gets paid in our business until customers are gathered, specifically two. No one has ever gotten a check without producing those two customers. And finally, we are licensed by the government. It is a very highly regulated business. One other point on the pyramid point. The former Texas PUC chairman Barry Smitherman was our keynote speaker in 2010. He is in charge, or was in charge, of the Texas Public Utility Commission. And he had over 60 companies that he was responsible for. In his keynote speech, he mentioned that Ignite and Stream Energy has done more for deregulation in the state of Texas than any other company, because word of mouth works, and we have been able as a group to move the needle of the deregulated companies further than anyone else. Deregulation is very, very important if states are going to make a lot of income off of it. And we have made major contributions through our word of mouth program. Why is there a cost to get in? Well, let's answer that question with a question. Have you ever owned your own business? I'll give you a quick story. When I was actually assisting in working in the D.C. market, we obviously have two markets that are adjacent to D.C., two counties that are in Baltimore, Prince George and Montgomery County. And these two counties employ a lot of people that work in the Washington, D.C. area. I will tell you this, that most of these folks that I talked to at first had graduated from college and had gone to work for the government, had never really ever owned a business. But as people are getting close to retirement, they're looking for other opportunities. Or maybe even as a government employee, they're looking for other opportunities. So if they've never owned their own business, as many of these folks haven't, it's important to ask the question, have you ever owned your own business? Because I wouldn't blame people for asking a question why there's a cost to get in if they've never been involved in a business venture. Because every business venture has a cost. Ours just happens to be a very low cost of entry. Find me any business where you can invest several $100s and get the kinds of return that we do. We have no employees or inventory to worry about. We don't have to sell energy month after month. We do it one time. In addition, we can't lay people off. You can't be fired. There's no paperwork. All of our heavy work is done on our website. The headaches are eliminated, and I don't know of any business, not even a lemonade stand, you can open without some kind of investment. So you have to empathize with the person that asks why there is a cost. And I think that if you can explain it this way, they'll understand that it's just a cost of doing business. And as we all know, if we didn't charge, most of the people that signed up would never do anything anyway because they have no equity in the business. It's very important to have skin in the game. And by the way, we don't make anything. We actually lose money on the 329 because of the cost of the materials that come into the company and the fact that most of that money goes right back to the associates anyway as a reward instead of advertising. Number 4, is this really going to work? Well, I understand that you need proof that it's going to work. I had a very interesting person that I talked to about the business in Washington, D.C. that owned 3 real estate agencies, and he was very concerned about his reputation, and I assured him that, first of all, we paid out over $300 million in our bonuses, our quick start and leadership income. Our rates are always in the lower quadrants. We're not always the cheapest. Many companies are in this business. They come in and they lose money to begin with. We feel that it's very important to keep our prices competitive but not lose money. We're debt-free. That's very important because as a debt-free company, that gives us the opportunity to expand our business into other markets and stay very competitive with our rates. And think about this. You have a 99% chance of getting people to pay their energy bills. Consider the single working mom with 2 children in a home that's in foreclosure. She's going to pay her electricity bill most likely before her mortgage. So I don't know of anything that gives you that kind of return. I know that you couldn't get that on your job or investing in any other type of activity during these tough times that we have. Also, it works because we know that word of mouth works better than advertising. Go back to my point earlier on the chairman of the Public Utility Commission in Texas. Word of mouth works, and our market share has been tremendous in market after market after market. We're number 1 in so many markets at this point. We've passed very stringent requirements to get to this stage of our Ignite business, and it's not easy. We've also been honored by the Inc. 500. The Inc. 500 would be the top 500 independently owned companies across the country, and we at one time were the 18th fastest growing privately held company when we were honored by the Inc. 500, and the 8th fastest growing privately held energy company. Very important facts. Does the company have a good reputation? Well, I think that that's a good question. Are you asking, is this business credible, and will it affect your credibility? It's a very important question, and we want to be able to answer that with facts, such as Rob Snyder, who is our CEO, has been named 2 times the Ernst & Young Entrepreneur of the Year Award in the Southeast. He earned it in 2008 and again earlier this year. We've won numerous accolades. We've been a finalist 4 times for the Platts Global Energy Award. Very prestigious award that's competed against with 1,500 companies worldwide. We've been the Entrepreneur of the Year at SMU University. We were the 198th best overall company when the Inc. 500 honored us. We are the 12th largest network marketer in the world, and we were only in 5 states. By the way, we've moved up 2 notches in just 1 year. We're destined to be in the top 10 very soon. And J.D. Power & Associates has awarded us with the 5-star award for service. This has been very, very prestigious and is a great honor. We all know who J.D. Power is. So you really have to take these objections and make sure that you embellish, but not necessarily accept. That's the key. And the difference between accepting and embellishing simply means I hear you, I get it, and I want to make sure that I answer these questions for you. Keep this in mind, that we are paid handsomely by this company to be able to answer objections. This is a word-of-mouth company, it is a relationship company, and we don't advertise. So instead we use people like you, and it's important that you're able to answer these questions and objections as a part of your success. Now let's take a look at a question that might be thrown at you. As a new associate, how would you answer this? Network marketing doesn't work. Tough question. Very, very difficult question to answer. That's a very broad question. So let's think about it a second and embellish it. Here's one way to approach it. Again, asking a question. Well, what's led you to believe that it doesn't work? Have you had a bad experience? Or maybe somebody you know have had a bad experience. You might say something like this. Well, you know, I don't know anyone who has ever made a dime in network marketing. Very legitimate point. Because if he doesn't know anyone that's ever made money in network marketing, how could he possibly believe in this concept? Embellish. So if they feels this way, and he feels that no one has ever made any money in network marketing, you have to be able to embellish and explain. Well, we have lots of people that are making money in our organization. Let's go back to the fact that the senior directors are making, as a group, more money than anyone else in the organization. We have to show them. We have to prove that. You can do that through me or people who are making money in Ignite that have been in it a while. Show them your check. This creates trust between the prospect and associate, or have them talk to other people that are managing or senior directors in the organization and find out exactly how they're doing. They'll tell you. Keep embellishing. Keep embellishing until you feel like you've answered their questions. Let's take a look at this one. Many people that are approached on this business have never sold. And that's who we're really looking for. We want people that aren't necessarily sales-type people. That's great if they are, but they don't have to be. So if you find somebody that says, I don't know how to sell, let's talk about that a second. Ask again a question. How would you describe selling? Well, to me, selling is offering something to someone that they don't need. Okay, so let me reiterate then. You're saying that maybe selling is pushing a product on someone and maybe even upsetting them because you interrupted their life with something that they were doing, an unnecessary pitch. Well, let me think about this a second. This sounds to me like it could very well be an ad on TV. The silent salesman. The ad that's interrupted your Mad Men program on AMC. So you have to understand their definition of selling. You have to understand their definition of what they are pushing back on. And totally embrace it, totally embellish it, but don't necessarily believe it. Let's answer the question. I get what you're saying, but I want to assure you, first of all, that we really don't sell electricity. You're already getting electricity. Everyone is. We're simply asking people to change their electric marketer. Since they're already purchasing the product, we're not taking additional money away from them. As a matter of fact, we hope to be able to put a little bit of money back in their pocket with a life essential service that is habitually used and unconsciously paid for. That's the first thing that we do. Secondly, we're not asking anyone to join Ignite. We simply want them to see what we have to offer, to take a look at our program, and they will decide themselves if it makes sense to them. The program does the, quote, selling, unquote, not us. So we're really simply asking someone to take a look at our product and to make a switch. Number 7, this is a good one. Some people are very independent and really don't want to depend on other people for their livelihood. But if you take a look at the Fortune 500, you won't find anyone that's actually made a fortune on their own. They've always had either banks or other people help them with their fortune. And if we understand the process, we understand that wealth can be built through leveraging. This is a fantastic way to leverage. Let me give you an example. Let's just say if we could wave a magic wand, that you could work 24 hours a day, 365 days, for 1 year. Just 1 year, just to get you ahead of the game. That will result in about 8,700 hours a year. If we add $25 per hour to that, you're looking at a little over $218,000 annually. What if we could take a group of 50 and see if we could improve on that number? Well, let's take that 50 and, first of all, ask them to work around 10 hours a week and take the full month of December off. What do the numbers look like? Well, let's do the math here. 2 hours times 5 days as an average would be 10 hours a week, times 48 weeks. Remember, we're taking December off, times 50 people at $25 an hour times 24,000 hours would be $600,000. Oh, and I forgot to mention that doesn't include your personal income. Those numbers aren't in here. You see, we've tripled our efforts by having each person do a little bit of work each day. And that's how we can build wealth. Think about the possibility of having 500, 600, 700 people in your organization or more. So, as J. Paul Getty said, and I really like this statement, I much rather have 1% of my efforts and 99% of the team rather than 100% of my own efforts. One thing that you need to understand about this business, 99% of my income is based on what others do, not what I do. It is what you start and what others continue to do. That is the real key to the Ignite compensation plan. Number 8, you're going to run into some people that have heard about the business. Honor that objection, but don't necessarily believe it, meaning maybe they've just heard about it, but they really haven't been informed about it. Let's take a look at this. Maybe he says something like this: I've heard about Ignite from 6 people. You're the 7th person that's told me about this. I'm really not interested. Simply ask the question, well, what have you heard? Find out if they've just been told about the business or if they've actually seen a presentation. Well, I always say that it took me 3 times to really get the program. I think it takes a couple of times to really have it sink in and absorb. So keep this in mind, that if somebody has seen the program, and even if they've actually been to a meeting with someone else, that does not mean that they are necessarily obligated to that person. This is a business decision, not an emotional decision. Simply put, this is not a business that necessarily will attract the best, most logical moves. In other words, take a look at this business and go with the group that you feel like would move your career the best. So compare the person that has asked them to come aboard and join, and simply compare what they have to offer and what we have to offer, our training modules, the fact that we have very experienced upline. Find out how long that person has been in the business and if their upline is still in the business. Again, I'm not encouraging anyone to steal that person away from the person that brought them to the presentation, but simply to use business savvy and business sense versus emotions. Well, what about the people that don't actually live in deregulated areas? Well, there are certain states that are currently recruiting right now, and they don't have service areas. I can tell you that I am in 22 states with my associate group, yet we're only in 5. And the reason for that is that they know people in New Jersey or the Atlanta market or Dallas, Texas. Now, if a person, for instance, lives in, and we'll take Western Pennsylvania as an example, in the Penn Power area, then they're going to have to find customers in the Duquesne marketing area. It's as simple as that. Presley Swaggerty, our #1 money earner, actually has all of his customers that live somewhere else besides the area that he lives in. He is in a regulated area. He could not get his own personal customers. So he found them in areas outside where he lives. You can also volunteer to help that person get his two in those areas that are deregulated. Help him find those people. And remember, to begin with, we're only concentrating on 2 customers. Obviously, when he starts recruiting, many of the customers that decide that they don't want to be an associate could perhaps come aboard as an Ignite customer. And my favorite, finally, I need to do more research. Let me mention this about research. What research? I always like to say that in many cases, not all, but many cases, this is simply a stall tactic. In many cases, they'll say this just to move on. So I simply say this. If you want to do more research, that is great. Let's do that research together. How do we do that research together? Well, there's 2 things that we want to do. We want to give them a list of people to talk to. People that are in our organization that are doing well. Have them call them. And then the next thing you want to do is to take them through the Stream Energy website. Now, the Stream Energy website gives us some information that's invaluable to a candidate. Let me show you where to go. It's on one simple tab. Go to Media right here. Clicking on Media, what will happen is that you will have a screen that will pop up that will give you some information. Here's the first piece right here, doing research. Stream Energy named a finalist for 2012 American Business Award. This will tell you how we've been honored for charitable endeavors. For instance, with our Captain Hope's Kids program. It helps children in the Dallas market. But let's go further than that. Let's go down to the very bottom of the page and click on Media Archives here. Because as a research, here's how you can actually assist your candidate with research. They can go on their computer, and you can go on your computer, and you can point them and show them exactly where to go. Or you can sit down with that associate or candidate and take them through some of the Media Archives information. Here they all are, and they go from the most recent all the way down to 2006. So you can go through and pick and choose those areas for research. And I always like to tell my candidate the same thing. It would take you hours to go through and do the kind of research that you'd want to do. You can't, as a matter of fact, unless you actually use our websites. Going into Googling Ignite or Stream Energy will not give you the information that you need to make a prudent decision. So if we go into a few of these, let's just go down and take a look at a couple of the examples. I'm going to go down to 2010, for instance, and I'm going to show you here where it says Stream Energy named a finalist for the Platts Global Rising Star Award. Here we were ranked as the 16th largest worldwide direct selling company. You know we're number 12 now. All of these are, I think, very, very important. And you can just go through hundreds of these as you go down through here. Stream Energy named a 500 list. This is that Inc. 500 that I told you about earlier. You can click on this and actually read about the Inc. 500. You can do this on any of the chronological issues that we have here, chronological information that we have here. Those are the 10 most frequent objections that we have. There are, of course, many more, and feel free to give me a call or your upline if you run into others. I hope that you've enjoyed this session. Good luck in your recruiting, and good afternoon.